Welcome back, Ultimate fans, and you know what time it is. We've got a very quick episode for you this week, and we're going to cover a few signings, and then we're going to wrap up our four-part series of what teams I predict are going to make it into championship weekend. We're going to wrap up that whole series with the Atlantic Division during this episode. First up on our list this week, we have the San Diego Growlers. They are signing Jeff Silverman to come back and play for this team. And I think it's the addition they need when they have someone like the Dallas Roughnecks and Austin Soul coming in. Someone like Jeff Silverman, who is a playmaker, who makes spectacular catches, has crazy speed. He's going to make a big play every game. It's someone I think the Growlers really needed to kind of continue to build up that team that they have. He's played with all over the West now. I think he's played for San Jose, LA. He's already played with San Diego before. Now him coming back there with Khalif, you got Travis Dunn, Goose. They're just starting to really build a solid team there. And I think having him now with this team is going to put a lot more confidence in all those other players to play within their role. A huge addition now for San Diego as they come into a division that's going to be tougher than it's ever been before. And wrap it up our signing segment, we're going to go over to the East with the Toronto Rush. They're signing Jeff Powell for another year here in 2020. A consistent guy who's always bringing great quality plays to his team. He's a solid offensive player. Now having New York really building that dynasty there, they need to keep having those returners. There's a lot of great players there that are going to make huge impacts for this team, and they have a great young roster. They're going to have to be on top of their game because New York's looking to go back to championship weekend. Toronto really wants to show that they need to be back on top again there in the East, and Boston coming in is going to try to change all of that. A big signing for them with Jeff Powell. He's going to be a stellar player, the bomber for Toronto Rush. We'll see how that impacts their team as they move forward here this year in 2020. On to our final part of the episode. We're going to finish up our four-part series of all the divisions and who I believe is going to win and go on to championship weekend. We are finally made it now to the Atlantic Division, and I'm telling you, this one is going to be as tough as I had there with the Central Division. This is going to be a tricky one. There's a lot of teams now here. They went from 5 to 6, and there's a lot of new people coming into this division, so it's going to be very exciting as far as all the divisions. I think Central is going to be very close. It's going to be hard to tell who comes out. Here it might be a little bit easier to predict who's going to get through, but it's going to be exciting to see all these teams play each other really much for the first time. Like we've been doing now, we've been starting from the bottom and moving up, but let's go ahead and run down all the teams that are in the Atlantic Division, and then we'll jump right into where I think they're going to end up and how they're going to fare this season. Now we've got Pittsburgh and Philadelphia and DC all moving in now to what used to be the South, now the Atlantic, Tampa, Atlanta, and Raleigh. So where do these teams stack up? I think at the bottom of the list, I'm going to have to put the Philadelphia Phoenix. They've had kind of a struggling history. The only city that has an AUDL championship, but the current team does not. They have made huge strides over the last few years, but I think now kind of being uprooted from that division and going to a whole new division, it's going to be kind of a lot of new work for them to kind of establish themselves within this division. I just don't see them coming in strong this year and really upsetting a lot of these teams who are used to playing each other. I think they're going to have a hard time against Pittsburgh. There might be some interesting games against Tampa. They'll probably fare well better at home than I think they will be traveling. To me, I think they're going to come away with a few wins. There might be some close ones against Pittsburgh. Heck, there might be some good ones against Atlanta. Overall, this season, they're going to probably finish out in 6th place there in the Atlantic. Right next to them, now this is where it gets a little dicey. Really depends on how Atlanta and Tampa play each other. I'm going to put Tampa finishing in that 5th place spot. They've had some great talent over the years. This is a franchise that's been moving from city to city and having a lot of turnover each year. It's really hard to say who's really coming into that team. We haven't heard a lot of signings coming from Tampa. They're going to have to make sure they get wins against Atlanta, and they're going to have to maybe do some upsets against Raleigh. Overall, I think a good matchup there will be Pittsburgh and Tampa, but in the end, I think Pittsburgh's going to just do a little bit better. It really depends on, there's a lot of games against Atlanta. It really depends on how those go, which brings me now to 4th place. I'm going to go ahead and give it to the Pittsburgh Thunderbirds. Once again, this is a team I think who also could finish 3rd or 2nd. It really is going to depend on how well they play against DC. Pittsburgh has the star quality, has some great players coming into this Atlantic Division, especially with DC and Raleigh and Atlanta already kind of, I think they're kind of the top teams that are jostling around there. I'm not sure really where Pittsburgh's going to stand. It's going to show very early how they compete against these teams, where they can actually stand. They have a few stars there. It's definitely Max Shepard's going to be pushing that team, but I just don't see them really making a huge leap coming right out in the beginning of this year in this new division. I'm going to put them in 4th place. Here's where it gets really interesting. Who's going to take 3rd place and be wedged out of a playoff spot? I've been going back and forth with this, and this is where my bias might come in just a little bit. I'm going to put DC in 3rd. There's a lot going into this decision making. I think DC might actually be a better team than Atlanta. We just don't know until we really see them square off. We've seen how DC has played against Raleigh, and they've had some really good competition against them. And you look at how Atlanta plays against Raleigh, they do, but then there's times that just Raleigh seems to know how to control control them and beat them. Atlanta is capable of beating Raleigh, but DC seems to always be a little bit better on edge. This year, DC is going to have a hard time really just adjusting to everybody in the division. Atlanta-DC game is going to be very entertaining to watch, and I think Raleigh and DC, there could be some upsets there for DC taking over Raleigh, but they're going to have to beat Raleigh, they're going to have to beat Atlanta, and they're definitely going to have to get used to playing a team like Tampa, where if you aren't used to playing that team, they play a different style of Ultimate that you've just never seen before. Their first year in, depending on how the schedules really fall and what teams play who, I just think DC is going to get edged out by a little. They could easily finish second and maybe possibly first, but they're a team to keep an eye out for. They'll be right on the edge, but I think they're just going to lose that playoff spot by probably a game or two. So that brings us now to the number 2 spot, and I'm giving it to the Atlanta Hustle. Now, like I said, this is probably a bias, but this team has really built a great foundation. They have a lot of their players returning back for another season. They're bringing in some new talent. If we haven't gotten confirmation on some of these people, but if you kept up on their social media and you've been looking at some of the tryout stuff that's going on, the people who have shown up, there could be some great players making some moves to Atlanta, and I think it's going to help out their defense, which has honestly been the struggle for Atlanta. They have a very good consistent offense, but they have plenty of defensive chances to get breaks. They never capitalize. They put more and more pressure on their offense every game, and when the offense doesn't get the scores that they need, and that defense has the opportunities, but they don't make it happen, they tend to lose a lot of their games within 2 or 3 when it really could have gone the other way for them. But this, I think, could be the year. They're bringing in some new talent, providing themselves a little bit more breathing room with a tougher defense that'll get conversions and an offense that's going to be even more consistent than they've always been. This could be the year, now that they don't have to worry about Dallas, that they can actually wedge their way in to a playoff spot. Now, I haven't gotten confirmation on exactly what's going on, but I think Atlanta and Tampa are going to be playing a lot more than probably all the other teams who are going to be playing each other. So if Atlanta can come away and just sweep Tampa and win every single one, they're going to have a better chance of getting themselves into a playoff spot. And that leaves us with the number 1 spot, number 1 spot, the Raleigh Flyers. They were the champions during the regular season in the South Division, but now, and then you saw how that ended though, Dallas winning in the playoffs. I think this year is their best chance for them to get to championship weekend. I think they're going to have an easy time through this Atlantic Division as well. I think they're going to be on top by probably 2 or 3 games. It really depends on how they play against DC, how they actually play against Pittsburgh and travel up there further up in the Midwest and East. They're a powerful team. I think they're getting a lot of the same players back again this year. I believe that they deserved to go last year, but they just always had that choke against Dallas. And I think this is their chance to prove that now that Dallas is out of that division, and then maybe if they can get through this season healthy, they're going to get to championship weekend. And there's a very good chance with just the speed, the throwing abilities. This team is powerful. They're strong. They're fast. And if you're not used to playing with them, they're going to catch you off guard. DC is going to have a little bit of an edge, but as far as Philly and Pittsburgh, they're going to get a rude awakening when they come and play this team and see how quick and smooth their offensive play style is and how they can just attack whenever they need to. I think this is their best chance that they've had in a long time to not only get first place in the division, but also move on to championship weekend. It was just because of Dallas that they could never get through. But if there's a chance that they get to playoffs again and choke once more, this team's going to have to start really looking at themselves to consider why they can't win these big games when it means that much to them. They have a great coach with Denardis. They have a great system. They're just fearless when it comes to throwing the disc deep whenever they feel like they got a chance to score. New division, new chances, new outlooks. Raleigh's looking to take first place. Raleigh's looking to go to championship weekend, and we're going to see how it really all pans out this year. That means we'll probably have Raleigh and Atlanta having a playoff battle to see who goes to championship weekend. Most likely, Raleigh will be hosting it. I think that'll be a really incredible game. I think Raleigh, like I've said before, when we see them in those playoff games, they tend to have that choke moment, or they tend to let things get out of hand or just slide through their fingers. I think this year may be a little bit different, but Atlanta is that team that if they play well enough, they kind of sneak in, keep in the game, and if they can sneak by you, they could have an upset. But I just think Raleigh feels probably more confident than ever that they're going to get through. And I think if they host and they have a stellar season and they feel confident, I think even if Atlanta makes it, it may be a close game, but it may be one of those games where Raleigh just kind of stays 2 or 3 ahead throughout the whole game, and Atlanta has few chances from time to time, but there's a very good chance that Raleigh is going to push through and get themselves into championship weekend. I think it'll be an entertaining game. There's such a history between the Atlanta and Raleigh team. It's kind of this rivalry, but a respected one. But both of these teams, I think Atlanta has always felt like a little bit of an underdog to Raleigh. They have some great talent. Some of these players have gone back and forth between these teams. You have some people who have been on the practice squad for Raleigh now coming down to play for Atlanta, vice versa. Let's not forget about DC. There's a good chance they could also be in. No matter how it's really falls down or how everything falls into place, Raleigh's going to host, and they're going to probably get through, whether it's against Atlanta or DC. I think it'd be very interesting if Raleigh and Dallas meet in championship weekend and play each other. It adds a whole new element to that kind of rivalry that's been building up between those two teams for a long time now. And it'll be a big year for the Raleigh Flyers. They've always felt like they've had a team that if they can get to championship weekend, they're going to be able to soar past everyone. This will be their year. This will be their chance. But they will have some strong competition this year once they get there. Not like maybe they had when they had the chance back in 2015. Looking good for Raleigh. Things are flying high for them. Those discs are flying far. Raleigh Flyers, my prediction is they're going to get through the regular season number one. They're going to probably play Atlanta and get away with a win and move on to championship weekend. That's going to wrap up this week's episode. Thanks again for tuning in. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We're getting really close to those 100 subscribers. I've enjoyed doing this show every week. I hope that you are having just as much fun watching and enjoying the content I've been able to bring to you. It's going to be exciting. AUDL 2020. I can't wait for April. It's getting closer and closer each week. Thanks again for tuning in. I'll see you all next week on the AUDL Take.